Welcome to Imagination Fun Time. I am your host, Brandon Devine. Hello, folks. How are you? It has been another hot minute since I have talked to you. What is today? Today is Saturday, August 12th, 2023. It is currently 9:16 p.m. here in Arkansas. I survived this insane apocalyptic storm from last night. I've never seen it's. I don't can't remember the last time I saw a lightning storm like that before. I literally thought, Thor was about to come down from the heavens or something. It was something of that level and intensity, and it was pretty cool. I feel bad that I haven't been doing this podcast more. I really need to. I'm trying to dedicate myself to doing this more, even though I am such a lazy pothead. It is sometimes tough to get in the way of, that kind of a tough schedule when you're such a dedicated stoner. But I am here today to talk to you people because those of you who are listening, I love you, and you have taken the time out of your day to listen to me ramble about movies and television that you could just easily watch yourself and learn about yourself, but you want to come listen to my autistic ass explain some movie and television facts to you, and I appreciate that. That makes me feel really good about myself. I hope you're all doing good. I hope you're all having a fun summer. I've just been really working a lot. Rent's unfortunately gone up, like almost doubled in my apartment this summer. Thank you, inflation. Thank you, Biden. It's really nice of you guys. So I've been working extra hours. I'm currently at this moment doing a training course. I'm training to start a job as a veterinary assistant. Just trying to figure out, better things in life to do. Trying to make more money. Trying to figure out a job that helps society a little bit better. And I can pay my bills a little bit better while still trying to be an entertainer professionally. An entertainer like a podcaster. A famous podcaster like Mr. Joseph Rogan or Mr. Billy Boy Burr. Or one of my personal new favorites, Mr. Timothy Dillon. Hopefully, I don't want to be the biggest podcast in the world. I would like to be able to do this podcast and make some money off it somehow, some way. Would you guys be willing to pay me? If this is like church, and I somehow passed around a collection plate, would you loyal listeners or anybody actually listening to this, would you actually put forth some money to help pay me for this amazing, well-crafted show? Or would you just throw in, like one of those, checks that you instantly bounce as soon as you leave the church? So normally at this point in my show, I would talk about some movie and television news. But for those of you following the news, the Screen Actors Guild and the WGA, the Writers Actors Guild, are currently on a major strike against the studios in an effort to fight for better pay and better work production. But I think mostly it's more about better pay because actors and writers, many of them are being incredibly screwed over by the studios, including people like me who made a living for several years off being a background actor in Los Angeles. I worked as a background actor on many shows while I lived in Los Angeles. The Good Place, all that. The entire second season of the Showtime series, I'm Dying Up Here. I was in the movie Dolomite Is My Name and the movie Blonde. I worked on a lot of really fun projects as a background actor and had a really fun time. And the studios quite possibly want to get rid of those. They want to eliminate those jobs from those hardworking, starving artists who are trying their hand. A lot of background actors are people just who have the same dream of trying to find success within Hollywood that, people have had for over 100 years now. So today I'm not going to read any movie news or television news because clearly, there's no strikes here. There's no picket lines here. And I'm not a member of SAG. I did not get to that level yet. I did receive two official union SAG vouchers one day a couple days on sets in Los Angeles, which means I was paid SAG wages for background acting instead of non-union wages for background acting. So I was almost able to qualify to join SAG, but did not quite reach there. One day I will, and one day I would hope to join the WGA. And I hope, I want a fair compromise for all. I want people to be paid fairly for their work. I want the most successful, the people who are having the most success to be paid the most. I just want balance. It's like the Jedi teaches us, I want balance. So, in solidarity with my striking brother and sister actors and writers, no news about Hollywood today, fuckers. All right, I'm not gonna do a very long podcast, but so today I'm going to briefly talk about a movie that I guess it's kind of like an independent cult movie more. Definitely a very cult movie. It's a movie called Suburbia. Suburbia was released in 1984. It is written and directed by a woman named Penelope Spheris. Produced by Burt Dragon and Roger Corman. Starring... There is a big list of people that are credited within this movie. And I'm not going to list everybody, so I'm just going to list several of the actors who had more prominent roles within the film. Starring Bill Coyne, Chris Pedersen, Jennifer Clay, Don Allen, Flea, Wade Wilson, Timothy Eric O'Brien, Lee Frederick, Jeff Prettyman, and Andrew Pikes. I'm sorry. Damn dyslexia. So the brief synopsis of the movie is this movie follows the lives of several orphaned and runaway teenagers who embrace the lifestyle of punk rock this is from 1980, so this is during still the early years of the emergence of punk rock within the world. And this brings many of the punk teens into conflict with many different members of society, which includes law enforcement, vigilante citizens, and abusive parents, which leads to fatal consequences. This movie shows many different aspects of the punk subculture, from the concerts to the way they are treated by lots of members of society, to the living lifestyle of punks. One of the main settings of the movie is a place called the TR House. TR standing for The Rejected. That is the way these orphaned punk teens look at themselves because they have been rejected by society. And most of them are just really good kids, just lost kids trying to find themselves in the world during a time in society when so many people would just abandon their children because they weren't, going with the quote-unquote boomer lifestyle or whatever. Punks did a very DIY, do-it-yourself kind of lifestyle. That's the way a lot of punk rock music came about, because punk rock during many of its early days was not embraced by the major music studios. So many underground punk musicians had to learn how to do it themselves and make the music themselves and distribute it themselves through word of mouth, through concerts, and whatever kind of, tactics back in the 80s before social media and the internet to get people to just listen to and enjoy your stuff. So this is the first narrative feature film that Penelope made after what is probably her most iconic, the first of her most iconic movies, which is The Decline of Western Civilization. The Decline is probably the most iconic punk rock documentary. The first one is probably the most iconic punk rock documentary in the history of punk rock. And it's a movie that that gives the world a look of the late 70s punk scene in Los Angeles, which has some of the greatest punk rock music of all time. When I was in my early 20s, I started listening to a lot of 80s hardcore punk, and I became such a fan. Like, I'm not a tough guy. I could going to punk concerts, I probably would not have as much fun of a time. Slam pits are just not my thing. But goddamn, the music, punk music is so fucking beautiful. And if those of you who have never listened to great, amazing bands like Dead Kennedys, Fear, The Germs, Black Flag, so many beautiful bands, I highly recommend so many of you go out and listen to some of these bands. Punk music is truly some of the greatest. Sorry, folks, taking a sip of water. People need water, survival, and all that kind of stuff. To quote Stephen Hyde from That 70s Show, even though, Danny Masterson is not having a best time in life right now. To quote Stephen Hyde, punk rock will be the soundtrack to the revolution. So one of the things that Penelope was able... how this movie came about was the script was written by Penelope, and the first producer to get involved within the movie was the producer Burt Dragon, who was not a Hollywood producer. He had never produced movies before. He was actually a furniture salesman from Cleveland. This is, something that there are so many thousands and thousands of movies out there. Movies that have budgets from hundreds of millions of dollars to, less than $1,000. And each of those movies has a producer, and the producer is the person who puts up the money to make the movie. And so there's so many movies out there where financing the movie doesn't always come from the studio, but comes from people who want to be outsiders who want to get involved in the studio system, but aren't as necessarily, producers are creative people. I don't necessarily think they are as creative at times as the directors, the actors, or writers, but they are also very creative people, and it's all a collaboration. So there are a lot of times people that just, people that have a good amount of money to spare that are like, hey, I'm willing to invest this money and let's make a movie. So Burt put up $250,000, and that was able to attract the attention of the legendary indie filmmaking icon Roger Corman, who knew Penelope, and that this is able to attract Roger, who was able to put up another $250,000, bringing the budget to $500,000, which for 1983, that's you can make a pretty decent independent film for that. So one of the methods that Penelope did for casting the movie, which gave it such an amazing authenticity and made the movie even better, is she didn't cast really professional actors. Mostly, pretty much all of the punk kids cast within the movie were real life punk kids. Maybe some of those kids were actual runaways, but they were all found through word of mouth at punk shows and were invited to come audition for the movie. Chris Pedersen, who plays Jack Diddley, he would later go on to have roles in bigger Hollywood movies like Platoon and Point Break. And then probably the most recognizable face within the movie as regards to the actors is the actor who played Razzle is Flea, the legendary bassist of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, my all-time favorite band fucking ever, and he's probably the biggest reason I play bass guitar today. So this was his very first movie, and Flea would go on to have a really, really great career in Hollywood, from Back to the Future, to Wild Thornberrys, to countless others I can't really think of off the top of my head right now. But casting these kids, a bunch of these kids as the TR kids, gave the attitude and feel of it to be a lot more real than if you just cast, pretty boy Hollywood actors and had the makeup and hair and makeup people and wardrobe department try to make them into punks. One of the things I found out through research of this movie is that the original person offered the role of Jack Diddley was a man by the name of Henry Rollins, who was at the time the lead singer of Black Flag. Henry Rollins would later go on to form the Rollins Band, and is just a very legendary figure within entertainment itself. And apparently, Rollins turned down the movie, and then many years later, told Penelope that the reason he turned down the movie is because Greg Ginn, the founder and lead guitarist for Black Flag, said Henry would have to quit the band if he did the movie. And, that's pretty punk rock right there. Let me tell you. Like, right there, you can't if you go do this movie, man, you can't be in my band. It's fucking weak, dude. But I think Chris Pedersen did a really, really good job as Jack Diddley. Let's see, what else? Bill Coyne, who plays Evan Johnson, I think probably the overall main protagonist, I guess, of the movie. He was cast because Penelope saw Bill, who, was part of the punk crowd, but was more of an average-looking teen than some of the more hardcore punk kids. So, he fit the role of Evan perfectly. Let's see, what else? I'm looking at my notes right now, people. I'm sorry, this is so unprofessional. This is terrible of me right now. This is dead air. I'm just dragging on right now. I'm sure some of you are probably having fun, doing whatever. If any of you are doing drugs right now, please be safe. Please do drugs responsibly. If any of you are listening to this and snorting some cocaine, please be careful out there. Test your cocaine, people, before you do it. You don't want to ride too much of that fentanyl. It's bad for you. Let's see. So one of the really interesting things within the movie that I found out about the movie is that there's many things within the movie that are reflections of real life. Some details within the movie that were inspired by real life. For example, when the character Sheila kills herself through overdose, and the TR kids are trying to decide what to do with the body. One of the kids says that they should just take her body and put it in the front car of her parents' car and leave it there, saying that that's what a friend of theirs did with another person who died. That came from the true story of the brother of Darby Crash. Darby Crash was the founder and lead singer of the legendary 80s hardcore band The Germs. Darby Crash's brother sadly overdosed on drugs, I believe, and his friends did not know what to do with the body, and literally left Darby's brother's body in the front passenger seat of her mother's car. And that's how the body was discovered later, which is incredibly messed up. Apparently the backstory, the character of Joe Schmo within the movie, his reason for wanting to run away and break off from his family life was because he did not accept his father's homosexuality and homosexual relationship with, his father's boyfriend, which, there's many different aspects. There are definitely many aspects of the punk lifestyle that I don't agree with. That, I don't think that's a legit reason to run away from home. But it's sad, that's stupid, but everyone's allowed to make their own choices. Apparently, that came from the backstory of a friend that Penelope knew. She had a friend whose mom left her dad because it turns out that the father was actually gay, and then the mom left, and the dad, I guess, started a relationship or maybe got married to a guy, and her friend did not get along with the stepdad, and so that caused her to run away from home. The backstory behind Evan's family, behind the character of Evan's mother, Penelope based that on her own mother. Apparently, in the movie, one of the things that causes Evan to run away from home and join the TR kids was his mom being an abusive alcoholic drunk, and at one point threw an empty liquor bottle that smashed right above Evan's head while he was sitting in a chair in the living room. Again, this is 40 years ago. 80s was a different time. Very different time in society. Boomers, starting to realize that, we are fucking up this world in many ways, and they're taking it out on their kids. Let's see, what else? One of the things that doing research on this movie, listening to interviews with Penelope, she said that one of the things Roger wanted for the movie, Roger Corman, the producer, he wanted more sex and violence in the movie. It's part of filmmaking, part of the filmmaking craft is, figuring out how to make your movie more exciting, more eye-opening, stuff like that. It is a movie. It's supposed to be entertaining. It's supposed to be a fun adventure. Penelope stated that she did not like that she later regretted doing the opening scene. I think both because, it was kind of a fucked up scene with animal violence and humans, and also the fact that they didn't have it. Just clearly, if you look at it, for those of you who've never seen it, the opening scene is Sheila hitchhiking on the side of the road, and getting picked up by some young mother and her toddler, and then the mother, toddler, and Sheila pull off to use a phone booth, which is at the edge of the abandoned tract houses where the TR house is, and a wild dog in the field runs up, and kills the baby. And the shot of the baby being torn to shreds by this dog, you can clearly just tell it's a baby doll just being torn up by this dog. Which, it's not necessarily the most fun scene of film. It is just a scene. It is just a scene in a movie. It's not real life. It's a movie. But the special effects behind it was not good. Speaking of the TR house, so the setting of the TR house was these. What am I saying? These. Look, listen to these. My name is Arnold. Listen to these. I've been listening to Bill Burr talk about this Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix, and it's just so funny listening to Bill Burr describe Arnold Schwarzenegger's life. Just talking like Arnold Schwarzenegger is funny. Let me tell you about these punk rock kids. When I came back in Terminator, I came back in time, and these kids at the observatory, they saw me, and they said, "Hey, what's up, asshole?" And then one of them said, "Hey, wash day, nothing clean." And then they were saying, "I'm a couple cans short of a six-pack," which is weird because I just chugged a six-pack. There were no cans left. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. So the setting of the TR house was this abandoned neighborhood that full of old tract houses, which is like a big neighborhood where like a big residential neighborhood where basically all the houses look the same. There are many of these kind of neighborhoods that were built and later abandoned during the early early years of building of the suburban culture and suburban America from the 30s to I think the 60s and stuff like that, and into the 70s. So the house is just what's known as a punk house. A punk house is a lot of times it's an abandoned house or a house that punk rockers are squatting in, or a place that punks are able to scrape together enough money to rent out. But it definitely has like a very anarchist style, very dirty, lots of graffiti, stuff like that. Just a lot of stuff you would kind of picture with a house full of just gnarly punk rock kids. Where this house was located was what is now the 105 freeway. For those of you who don't live in California, the 105 freeway is a freeway located south of Los Angeles, and it runs directly to LAX, Los Angeles International Airport. For those of you who've seen the movie Speed, the 105 freeway is where they did the iconic bus jump in Speed. And then a few years ago, like 7-8 years ago, it is also where they filmed the iconic opening song to La La Land. So that if you understand those references, you can kind of get a visual of where in the Los Angeles area the TR house is. It's no longer there. So shortly after the movie, sometime after the movie, the whole area was demolished, razed, and the 105 was constructed. There are a couple other places, though, within the movie that are still, at a few other locations that are still as they are from 40 years ago. Evan's house in the beginning of the movie, that is still there. I don't have the address for it. The convenience store from the convenience store scene, where Flea puts the slushy in a giant jug of pickled eggs and makes it all blue and fucks with the douchebag owner. That is at 8253 West 3rd Street. And then the funeral home scene where the punks go to attend Sheila's funeral, and Sheila's pedophile rapist dad tells them to get out, and then Joe loudly reveals to everybody that Sheila's dad was raping her, and then cause a big brawl. That is at 315 Silver Lake Boulevard. Both of those places are still open today, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, it's 2023. This movie was released 40 years ago. And this movie still has a lot of effect on punk rock and punk culture in general today. Apparently, many punks still view this movie as one of, if not the most seminal punk rock movie, showing, in sense of like it being like a narrative feature film and not like a documentary. And it really is. There are other movies out there that show and embrace the lifestyle of punk rock, but truly I think Suburbia is the movie that does it the best justice. One thing I should mention, there are 3 bands within the movie that do appear are 3 real punk rock bands. The first band that plays in the movie is a band called DI. The second band that plays is a band called TSOL, which stands for True Sounds of Liberty. They play a song in a movie called Wash Away, which I was introduced to through the American Wasteland, Tony Hawk American Wasteland soundtrack, which was Wash Away was covered by a band called Alkaline Trio. Fucking love that song. I love that version. But the TSLO version is also really, really great. And the third band that plays in the movie is a band called the Vandals. These are 3 great early 80s hardcore punk bands. If you want to go check them out, music's all over YouTube. Definitely check it out. And that's all I really got for today. Thank you for listening. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I hope some of you maybe learned something. And I hope maybe some of you are inspired to go and listen to some great punk rock music. Don't let punk die. It is truly some of the greatest fucking music that has ever been made in the history of mankind. And I hope it will be around to live, thrive, and cause anarchy for many years to come. Just did the devil horns there, if for any of you who can see through my my iPad, to watch me recording this. And if you can see me, hi. And also, why are you watching me? Why are you spying on me through a camera? So thank you, people. I hope you had a fun time listening to this. And I will see you next episode. Thank you. Have a great day.